Hey everybody, welcome to the next video. So one thing that you're guaranteed on the PS1 is variety. PS1 was out when publishers and companies were putting out games that hit almost any and every interest. Like, you want a horror game?
All right, you got it.
You want platforming?
You got it.
You want an RPG?
You got it.
Today, we're going to talk about a game that smashes a couple of those genres together to make something that is like equal parts cult classic and also a mess at the same time. So today, we're going to talk about
You got it.
That's right. So today we're going to talk about a game called Koudelka. And much like one of its brethren of RPGs and horrors mixed together, Parasite Eve, it's really like a weird game. It combines different type of like cinematic storytelling with a little spice of survival horror, and then it mixes in traditional RPG elements while it adds slight little roguelite elements and also like occult historical horror themes from Europe. It's kind of hard to describe the whole thing, and really this game is the brainchild of one Hiroki Kikuta, and like that's kind of the strength and the weakness of this game. So this game like really requires a little bit of backstory. So first off, Kikuta used to be an employee at Squaresoft or Square Enix. And during his time, he worked as a composer, and he worked on most notably like the Secret of Mana series that was on like the Super Nintendo and things like that. And he worked there for a long time, and eventually he wanted to step out of composing and get into the directing role. And so as he kept pushing to try to break into his new role, the company structure was like completely against him. They didn't want him to touch anything outside of making music. So after a while, you know, he kind of got tired of it and he left.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the park.
And then he and some other fellow coworkers that were also getting tired of the work structure over at Square left and formed the game company called Sacknoth. Now, in his time at the company, he had gained a couple of notable friends in the game industry, and he actually ended up getting Sacknoth purchased by SNK. They were going to back them and give them the money so that they can bankroll their games. And really, this is what set him upon making his grand game that he's always wanted to make. And that game would end up being Koudelka. Now, the development for this game wasn't exactly smooth, and like running the company and trying to make sure that they're profitable enough so SNK is happy, but also trying to work on his dream game. Certain things had to get mixed around. So one of the main problems of this game that I'm going to talk about later, of course, but it was combat. Kikuta's idea of combat was to have like a free roaming, like action type game, something that wasn't tied down to like traditional RPG standards. The problem is most of the people that came with him from Squaresoft basically grew up making turn-based games. So that's where they were the most comfortable. So he had to literally kind of back off a lot of his ideas just to make the team more comfortable, because if he didn't, like, the game probably could have never came out. And since that's the case, Koudelka ended up being a traditionally turn-based game that had a lot of like small quirks and things to it. So it ended up being kind of interesting at the same time as like frustrating, but I'll dive into the combat later in the video. And you can kind of feel when these old ideas are like grinding against what Kikuta wanted to do, just because like there's just some sensibilities that he wanted to kind of move past that he didn't want to keep. So really, he tried to make a compromise as best he could in that department, but he eventually wanted to make the game more cinematic and more dramatic and feel more, I guess you could say, realistic or believable. So he even tapped some mocap studios out in Santa Monica to get the motion caption for all of the game's like CG. So all of their movies were using actual actors moving around so that you could like feel the emotion better coming out of those scenes. And I mean, even with all that, he went even further, and that was to send the team out to, I think it was the Welsh countryside, and he sent them out there to do some extra research so that whenever they're making the monastery and they're making the surrounding areas and like the CGs and stuff like that, they wanted to make sure that it looked genuine. And I mean, it worked pretty well, because a lot of that stuff does look very good. And while he was doing all this, he was acting in many different roles, and you can tell that like this was his brainchild, because he was director, he was the producer, he was the composer, and he wrote the script for the whole game. Not only did he write the script for this game, but because Koudelka was his character, because that's the main protagonist of the game, he wrote her like a 4-part series. So this wasn't even supposed to be a one-sum game. His plan was to come out with even more games that would explore her backstory and give her more depth. Now, after he went through all this trouble and he was putting everything together, the game finally came together and was released in 1999. Now, in Japan, the game did okay.
Good.
It didn't like make a huge splash, but lots of Japanese people bought the game, and it received like decent praise from the Japanese reviewers. That can't be said for the Western audience. A lot of the magazines and the other reviewers for the game in the US had some problems with it, so the game didn't garner a lot of like good faith, and the review scores for it aren't exactly the best either. Most people had pretty much the same thing to say about it. The game looked beautiful, and the story was dark and interesting, and they liked the characters, but the pacing for it was just really slow, especially the combat. It is, I wouldn't say it's a complete drag, but it's definitely not as fast or snappy even as something like Final Fantasy VII. So some of the reviews were, well, most of the reviews actually were pretty much the same. Looks beautiful, plays kind of slow. So not long after the game came out, Kikuta would eventually step down.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. And fuck you, I'm out.
As being CEO of Saknoth, and he would later go on just to create his own music label. I guess it just ended up being too much for him. But one thing that he can be proud of is that this game did spawn kind of a legacy, as later the next group of people that would run Saknoth would create the Shadow Hearts series, and it would be pretty much like the spiritual successor, and even the later games would use Koudelka as part of their main character and story. So even though Kikuta wasn't there, he still influenced the later titles. So now that little bit of backstory is out the way, let's look at the game. And first I want to look at the characters. So the game centers around 3 main protagonists. You have Koudelka, who is the main character of the game. She's even on the box art. And Koudelka is, well, I guess you could say she's a bad bitch. Like, really, she is a no nonsense. She really puts up like a strong defensive shield. But of course, as usually with those like tsundere types of characters. She's kind of a softie inside, but she is very practical and she is very protective of herself. So next up is Edward, and he's kind of like the regular guy. You know, he's like an everyman, and his main thing is like he doesn't like the severe inequality between like the super rich and the super poor. So, and he's also kind of a thief, I guess you could say, but he kind of plays the part of like the Indiana Jones character. He's very plain clothes. He's pretty much plain spoken. He acts almost like a player would in those situations. And lastly, we have Mr. James O'Flaherty. Now, James is a priest or a bishop. And so he kind of plays like the weird religious sect from the game, but he's also got his dark secrets from before he joined his religious part, and it all comes to fruition later in the game. But he ends up like coming across as just a snobby kind of like he's not a very nice person. He is very holier than thou.
You mean we can't get out? How hard can it be?
Why don't you ask these guys?
Damn it! Did you see that? Someone's in here.
Will you shut up and get us out of here? How hard can it be for thieves like you to get us out of a place like this?
Try saying that in the East End, holy man. Your severed head would hit the ground before you even finished the thought.
And this ends up becoming like a main part of the game, really, to where you have these three different personalities, each one bringing different types of experiences, and then they're being literally smashed together in a situation that none of them really wanted. And it really helps play out the rest of the game, watching these three interact with each other as they all have their different views on things. And most of the time it ends up clashing, especially with Edward and James. Their two worldviews are very against each other for most of it, and it creates like the little bit of antagonism that you need in a group like this, but also it helps them eventually like come together when they have to come together for a specific cause like survival.
This must be the temple.
There's no way! If I put a bullet through it, it wouldn't budge. What are we gonna do?
How ironic to have made it this far and not have access to the temple.
Koudelka, Edward, you both must go now. It is my friend that is apparently responsible for this disturbance, and therefore I am partially responsible for this trouble. I have no intention of asking for your sympathy, and I'm in no position to plead for your help. So from this point forward, I can manage on my own.
Don't kid yourself. We didn't come along just for your sake.
No, Koudelka, you should go back now. It'll be far too dangerous.
Edward, you're the one who should go home. You were not meant for this world. Granted, you are a good fighter, having had plenty of experience, and I won't deny the fact that you have the killer instinct either. But when all is said and done, you are an average Joe. I am not. I was meant to exist in this realm. It's the only place I can carve out an existence for myself.
Quit lecturing me! I want no part of a lukewarm existence filled with regret. No. My way is to not worry about consequences, and to do whatever it is I want to do. Chance means nothing to me. Life's a gamble, and once you place your bet, you'd better play to win, or else you end up dead.
Edward, you really are ridiculous.
That's what they tell me.
Do as you like.
That I will.
Oh, suddenly when you feel like it, you decide when you can and cannot open doors?
Wait, there's a way. Remember when we were searching Patrick's mansion? There was various chemicals around. It may take some time, but I think I can combine the chemicals to make nitroglycerin.
Nitroglycerin?
That's great! We're talking powerful explosives here.
For this door, I think we'll need a full flask. Indeed, if I drop the flask before I return, I'll be knocking on heaven's door in a flash.
Now, the game itself overall is pretty dark.
Actually very dark and twisted.
There's not a lot of bright spots in this game, and I think that actually helps it out a lot. Like Kikita's world is very there's a lot of like evil and darkness hiding behind the corner, and you can't just drop your guard at any point. And most of the time this is given in a pretty decent way. Sometimes it is very confusing. especially if you don't search all the areas and get all like the little secret documents to read everyone's little backstories and extra things that kind of happens in the game. Some of the stuff can be kind of like lost on people, so you gotta get in there and try to dive into the world. Now, with that being said, the dialogue in the game is sometimes it's pretty like straightforward and it has meaning, and during the voiced sections it's voiced really well, and then other times we go straight Evil Dead type campy with some of the stuff in this game. Sometimes it's hard to figure out where it's going, but then other times it's like, damn, this is dark. Like, I know I'm in some bad stuff right now.
Who on earth are you two?
Hey, we rescued you, and that's your way of saying thanks?
Hey, what's this? The Princess Alice? She was a pleasure boat that went down in a terrible accident in the...
Did you see all those bodies? Be quite a party if they were alive.
Resurrecting the dead? Is this for real? Hey, we're not talking about Frankenstein here.
Wait! Elaine! God! Curse! What a cruel world! I gave everything for your happiness, and now what have I left with? I have no meaning in my life. Damn it!
So the main plot of this game is that there's this place called the Nimitan Monastery, and it has been ridiculously active with a lot of like demons and dark magic and dark energy for a long time. And people have been seeing ghosts and monsters and demons and all sorts of stuff starts happening here. And all three of these characters will go for different reasons. Koudelka, because she was summoned by one of the ghosts that are there that's trying to get out. Edward is going because he heard about the caretaker of the place was like hoarding all sorts of wealth, and he thinks it's wrong and he thinks the guy should share it. And James, on the other hand, is there because he's been tasked by the church to go find special documents called the Immigrate documents. And he's looking for a certain person there that you later find out was someone that he knew from his past. And he and this man named Patrick were going after this woman called Elaine, and James loved her very, very much. But he kind of saw that he didn't really do as well as Patrick. So he would relent and go into the monastery, and Patrick, on the other hand, would marry her, and then they would be together. And then later in the game, once you start, well, about spoilers, by the way, once you do all the documents and you start pushing the game forward, you find out that Patrick and Elaine lived somewhere by themselves, I think at the monastery itself. And one night, some robbers came through and killed Elaine while Patrick was away. And when he got back, he was so grief-stricken that he started looking for ways to bring her back from the dead. And he found one way was the Immigrate documents. And so he obtained them from the church, illegally, of course, and he started running the experiment to try to bring Elaine back to life. And by doing this, he needed to kill like a lot of people, like a lot of people. And eventually he succeeded in bringing her body, but he couldn't bring her soul. So now her soul was trapped, not being able to pass on, but her body was coming to life, but it was going to be like a horror on its own, and it was causing all of these abnormalities and demons and monsters. And so she called out to Koudelka to come and try to help her stop everything that Patrick put into motion, while also freeing her and some of the spirits that were trapped there. And really, when you go through the game, you find out that a lot of this is alchemy. And wait a minute, where have I heard this before? Oh my God.
見てくれ。人の言葉を理解するキメラの完成品だ。いいかい。あの人はエドワードだ。そうだ。
Now, since you got all this ridiculously crazy stuff of monsters and demons running around, like, what are you supposed to do when you see these things? Well, I mean, the answer to that question is obviously violence.
I'm gonna hit you, and you're gonna fall. And I'm gonna look down, and I'm gonna laugh.
So leading off of that, we're going to look at the combat. Now the combat is, it follows traditional routes. Like, for example, everything's turn-based. There is no active time battle or anything like that. It's your turn, monster's turn. And everything happens on a plane. And even the field in which you fight is grid-based. So your characters can move up and down the field trying to get into close range. So if you're trying to melee, you can attack the monsters. And the monsters are doing the same thing. The big difference is ranged combat. Ranged combat in this game literally has almost no restriction outside of maybe like one fight in the game. And even then, like, melee combat helps because it helps play into the systems, but range combat is like God in this game. And expanding on the movement portion, so you can move your character up and down however many tiles. Usually it's about like 3 or 4 tiles that you can move. And you cannot go past wherever the most forefront monster is. So if that monster is 3 blocks in front of the end of the little fight area, you can't push around them to the left or right to get to the end. So that means if they have extra monsters in the back that are just launching ranged attacks at you, you have to kill the first one in the front in order to get to the back ones. And the same works for you. Like if the monsters are trying to get to your magic caster or your range attacker, they have to get through whoever you put in front of them to get there. And this works both beneficially and detrimentally for both parties. And a very, very important thing to note is if your lead character, so usually it's the melee character, is sent out front to like cover for the magician and the range. If they die and the monster moves up past their corpse, that character is now locked. You can't bring them back to life because then they would technically be behind the monster. So now you have to hurry up and kill the monster if you want to bring them back. And hopefully another enemy hasn't moved up into that tile either. So it's a weird, like, I don't know why that idea was put into the game. And it doesn't tell you this. You just have to figure this out by accidentally dying one time and the monster is running forward. And this makes the fights kind of boil down to like a sumo match with nuclear weapons in your back pocket. So a lot of your attacks can push enemies, and the enemies can also push you forward and back if you hit them hard enough. And so you're trying to shove the enemy as far back as you can while having your people in the back that are just being all magical or ranged attacky to do a lot of your damage, even though you can do significant damage with melee. And really, that leads into the next point, that melee is good, but magic is god tier in this game. And the main reason why I say that is because, like, in most games that I've played, because I've run this game a couple of times just to get footage and everything, like, magic will just wipe the board if you do it right. And if you have your magician, like, significantly leveled up, it's really ridiculous. And there's only a couple of parts in the game to where magic just is not worth it. And outside of that, you're going to clear the board for most of this game using magic. As I've said before, your main methods of attack are melee, magic, or range. And your magic is something that you kind of gain as you play through the game. Like, you begin the game with all of your support spells basically given to you right there. And then you earn your attack magic as you beat bosses throughout the game. And so each one can be gained just by forwarding the story along. Your melee, on the other hand, is all about whatever weapons you have on hand. And most of those weapons, you're just going to have to find or get through random drops from your fights with other enemies. And that is the only way you're going to be able to get items in this game. There is no economy in this game at all. So you don't have any type of money or anything that has like a monetary value. Everything is either you find on the ground that's been placed specifically by the developers, or you pray to RNGesus that you're going to get something that can help you, because that goes for your weapons, all of your items, whether it's support or attack items, and even your armor. And another thing to add is that in this game, the developers put 0 armor outside of, I think, 1 or 2 talismans in the game that you can just find in the world. All of your other armor you have to get off of enemies, and you have to hope that they're just going to drop it for you. And depending on, and I truly believe this game is seeded, depending on your seed, you could get all the armor in the game, or you can get absolutely 0 until the very end of the game. It's completely back and forth, and you don't know what you're going to get. And the weapons take it a bit further because they can all have modifiers on them. For example, like one could do HP drain or MP drain, or they could have elements put on them, or like they can create status effects. But you can't physically put those modifiers on the weapon. They just either have it or they don't. And you have to fight a very specific monster to get very specific drops. So it's really, I want to say frustrating. Like, that's why I hesitated for so long, because sometimes you really need some more weapons, but like you're just not getting them from any of the monsters. But then you might say to yourself, well, what do I do if I run out of weapons? Like, how do I protect myself? Well, pick up those hands, bitch. Like, go ahead, box them out. Like, for real, if you build your melee character out correctly, they can just bare-hand everything in the game. And you only equip the weapons if you want to like add their stat boost, because I forgot to mention this earlier, but every weapon also gives you a stat boost on top of the modifiers that are on the weapon. So they may increase attack, they may increase speed, your mind, they might increase your defense. So depending on which one, you'll get a different boost. And in all truth, like sometimes they're very helpful, and then other times you'll probably just end up being better going barehanded. And a big reason for this is because this is something the game does not tell you once again, and you have to find it out on your own in the most tragic way possible. And that is that all weapons in the game, sans ranged weapons, will break eventually.
Do you hear me, you f***ing cretin? My blade will tear you asunder. You will respect my blade. What?
And you may think to yourself, surely there's a durability point system. And I'm here to tell you, there is not. And the game does not let you know. And there's no real way to know how long or how short your weapon is going to last. So most of the time, what most people do when they play this game is just turn your melee into the greatest boxer on the planet, and then you just put 5 across the eyes on all the enemies in the game, while the other characters can just stay ranged or just do melee or magic the whole time. Now that you got your head wrapped around some of that stuff, each weapon type and all of your magic all level up as well. So you can push everything to a maximum of level 3. So you're barehanded, knives, swords, great swords, clubs, axes, and all your magic, your fire magic, wind magic, your healing magic, your support magic. Each time you use them, you gain XP, and you can push them into different levels up to level 3. And for instance, melee weapons, every time they gain a level, you have a chance to combo. So level 2, you get 2 hits in 1 turn, and level 3, they do a 3-hit combo. Magic, on the other hand, it can grow bigger, hit multiple enemies, or it can add some extra effects. So it's very much in your benefit to spend the time to grind just a little bit to get these skills up, so that later in the game, the monsters aren't as much of an issue. And a word of warning to all my completionist people out there, because I tried to do this too and then I gave up on it. Don't try to max out every single thing to level 3. I'm just warning you. It takes forever, especially for the melee. Magic, it grows slower than melee, but melee is dependent on what kind of weapon drops you can get. So if you're just getting knives, but you're trying to level up great swords, well, too bad. You're just going to have to deal with whatever the game's giving you. So for completionist's sake, I beg you, concentrate on maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 if you're really trying to go hard. Different things to level up to level 3, and then just run the game with that. Just for your sanity's sake, just please.
With these hands. These dirty hands.
And really, the main way you're going to approach combat is most of the time you're going to put Edward in front. Now, it's not because Edward is exclusively like the only melee character, but his base stats in the game push him towards melee combat. His intelligence and his mind and his piety is just not that high. So it's better to send him in front, buff him up, and increase his attack and his hit as high as you can go, and just have him like two-hand everything. And the other characters like Koudelka, she is going to be your attack magician. So anytime you have offensive magic, put it on her, let her run it out. If you go ahead and just crank out her mind and give her a little bit of intelligence so that the accuracy stays high, and then crank some piety so that she has enough mana, she can one-shot almost everything in the game, and it becomes pretty simple at that point. James, on the other hand, he has ridiculously high piety, but his mind is like so-so. So he ends up being the perfect support character because piety affects your healing magic and how much mana you have. So he can just buff the team all day. And that's generally what people do. The game offers a system in which you can dump your attribute points into different things. And it actually explains how the attributes play off each other really well. Like mind and intelligence, you need intelligence in order to hit stuff accurately, but you need mind so that it's strong enough. But if you power up one too far, like I'd say, what was it? Probably about like 10 points or more, things start going awry a little bit. So you need to keep things balanced. But even though you can do that, it's better to centralize the character, because you can make like James a full-on melee, but he's not going to excel at that in the same way that Edward would, because his base stats push him that way. Nor would he be as good of a magician as Koudelka, even though he's kind of your all-rounder, but it's just best to have him just buff everybody 24/7, and then have Koudelka nuke everyone while Edward is keeping the enemies at bay and punching them in the face. And one of the last bits of combat I'm going to talk about is that speed is important. Your speed pretty much determines your turn order, but you don't know what the turn order is. So you just need to be fast enough to outpace the enemies. But the real last thing I want to talk about now is status effects in this game are ridiculous.
Am I poisoned? Why am I toxic? What?
I'll repeat that. They are ridiculous.
My collection of rare, incurable diseases violated.
Every monster has some type of status effect that it can cause to your characters, and your means of getting rid of them are very small. Now you can, put this on them if your weapon does it, but these guys, I swear, every monster in the game can put some type of status on you, and you better hope it ain't the wrong one that goes against your character, or you better hope you have something to help protect against it, because my God, you'll be spending all your combat time trying to work around this. The silver lining for this, though, is that status effects don't last outside of combat. So once you finish the fight, the status effect goes away. You don't have to worry about it anymore. But my God, that's what not only is combat slow, in that you have to watch full videos of the characters walking up, reaching back, punching the character, backing up, and then it needs to load the enemy that's going to make its stance and do its punch and back up. Combat is slow in this game. It is methodical, and you're going to have to either emulate it and put on a fast forward button, or you're going to be spending majority of your time watching just combat move, nothing else.
is enough to get me to the boiling point.
And also, one last thing, all encounters in this game are random. So once you take a few steps, the game will determine whether or not to put you into a fight. You'll transport into a new plane of existence, fight the monsters, and then you'll transport back. The only other time that you fight other things is when it's a scripted part in the level. So like boss fights, if it's a cutscene that leads into a fight, things like that. But other than that, everything is a random encounter. And in terms of random encounters, I think this game sits pretty fairly in the middle. I never felt like it was too many. I also never felt like it was too little. It seemed like it was just right, and you can move around, but you can't affect how much you can get into encounters or not. It's set throughout the whole game. Now, moving away from combat, we get to exploration. And exploration is pretty straightforward. If you played like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, any of those, it's all pre-rendered backgrounds, and your character can move around them and search out different things. Like you might find items on the ground or weapons on shelves or something like that. But much like Parasite Eve, this game takes the survival horror approach to where the camera will constantly shift around once you move to different parts of the areas to give you a specific camera view. The main difference is Parasite Eve, that also affected combat, where in this game, it just doesn't. It's just a different way to look at the room. But it allowed the developers to really they really made a good job of setting up these pre-rendered backgrounds and filling them with so much stuff. Like, it looks like it's a place that could actually exist in all the dirt and grime. And then once you get to like the housing areas, it looks like someone lives in this house. So they did a really good job with a lot of this stuff, I think. And as stated, like most of the areas, you'll just run around and get into fights, but there are safe areas, and most of these are protected by a boss. Now, you'll enter the area, it'll have some script that says like, oh, there's something wrong here. And then you'll end up fighting a boss. And once you beat them, there'll be holy water. And in that area, you can heal your party completely and you can save the game. But there are also quick saves. If you enter certain areas, there'll be a little S symbol at the bottom of the screen. And if you hit the menu button at the time, you can do a very quick save. That way, you can bypass if this game kills you, because sometimes you will just get randomly mopped up by a random mob. And the exploration for the game is pretty straightforward. You'll very rarely get lost, and the game even gives you a map, but if you really just follow along what you need to, it's not that difficult to find your way around the mansion or the monastery grounds or any part of the game. So yeah, I think it's pretty decent. It leads you exactly where you need to go, and the backtracking is not like super heavy, as long as you check every area. If you don't really explore a lot, you will find yourself backtracking to find a couple of key items that you need in the game. And speaking of key items in the game, there are a couple of very specific ones. One, you need to find a random arm that nobody tells you about. Now, if you have a gamer mind, you're going to pick it up without even thinking about it. But the other one is a pendant. Now, once again, if you have a gamer mind, you're going to pick that pendant up just because, you know, it's a free item on the ground. Why would you ever pass it up? But if you're just a normal person, you might be like, it's a pendant, whatever, I don't care. But those two items are extremely important to the end game. And I'm going to talk about especially the pendant later. But that arm is important, and the pendant is something that you definitely need. Now, the overall pacing of the game, I think, is really good. It builds up pretty well into the final act. The characters get to develop little by little, and eventually you get to see these three people that, even though at the end they're still not really like friends, but they've come together as a unit, and they end up working towards one goal. And I think like the exploration kind of helps with that, because as you go from area to area and you're meeting these new trials and you're hitting these new things, like you do get to see the characters like kind of grow into each other and end up eventually helping each other out. And most of that, I think the exploration helps, the way that they paced out the cutscenes, even though the cutscenes can be very, very long, especially one in particular where Ed and Koudelka are really given, and that actually is probably one of the better scenes in the whole game, in all truth. But it is very long, and it's giving, like, you know, tons of backstory and really filling in the character. but overall the pacing is good. And the game, if you take out all of the extra combat crap that you put up with, and so like if you emulate this game and you set it on fast forward for the fights to help move things along, the game is really only about 13, 14 hours long if you're just going through the whole thing. But like if you take out that fast forward function, this game easily hits 20 hours for no reason. But pacing wise, for the story beats and everything, I think it's done really well, and I think Kikuta did a good job. Now the music for the game, I think, really fits the whole overall feel of it. It uses a lot of like because it's set in like the Welsh area of Europe. I think it uses a lot of instrumentation and some of the ideas from there, and it plays really well once you hear it, like in the battle music or in different themes for the characters. But for the most part, a lot of the time the music is drawn back, and it's just you in this foreboding place with this excellent sound design, by the way, that really sells out that you're in this creepy, like evil monastery that's just been tainted over a long period of time. And it leads pretty well into the overall structure of the game. And with that being said, personally, I'm not a huge fan of this like overall album. I think it works really well while you're playing the game, but this isn't one of those games to where I'm going to be putting this stuff on, my playlist outside of playing this game. The only theme that really stuck in my head, well, the only two themes that really stuck in my head were the regular encounter theme and the boss fight theme. Outside of that, everything else just stays in the game. It works really well while you're playing it, but you're not really gonna boot this up at a party and have people tapping their shoes to it. Now, this game also has multiple endings, 3 in total, in fact. So let's start with the bad ending. So the bad ending is if you go through the game and you don't pick up the amulet that you find in the little outside courtyard area, and you go to fight the final boss, the moment you initiate the final boss encounter, a CG cutscene plays and your whole party dies instantly. There is no warning to this. There's no hint as to why this happened. You just die. Now, with that being said, if you miss the amulet, the game will give you one more chance before you get into the final boss fight. And that whole thing is like a whole sequence of fights put together for the final boss. But it'll give you one more chance to get the amulet. But that's considered the bad ending. Your whole party just dies, like they literally go out Indiana Jones style. The second ending is, they don't call it like a good ending or a bad ending, it's just the canon ending. And for this one, you fight the final boss, so you kept the amulet, you block the death ray that she spits at you, and then you fight her. And then after that, you climb up the tower as it's burning down around you, and you fight her like, I think, 2 more times in her whatever phase. Once you get to the very top, you fight her for the very last time, and she turns into her giant, the god monster form, and you lose. That's the canon ending. You have to lose the fight. And at the end, a cutscene plays to where James sacrifices himself to basically destroy Elaine's body, to purify the entire monastery of all this evil that's been going on, and to set all the souls free. And he himself floats into heaven with Elaine and the rest of the souls. And that is the canon ending that is referenced in the later Shadowheart series. Also, Koudelka and Edward get it on. Now, the so-called good ending is you find the amulet, you fight the monster, and in the final fight, you do enough to kill her and you save everyone and no one dies and she falls back into the tower and her body is destroyed and everyone lives. And that's it. There's no extra story. There's no people have come to massive revelations. It's just she dies, you win, game over. Overall, I think it's okay. Personally, I prefer the canon ending. I think that's the one that makes the most sense. It has the biggest like emotional weight to it, and it's what set up the series to go on and become more than what it was. And after you do all this, you find out there's no extra in-game stuff. There's no new game plus. There's none of that. The only thing that's in the game that acts as like additional content is there's a extra boss, a side boss that you can go and fight if you want to. You don't have to. It's completely optional. And in the story, this gargoyle shows up in the church and separates Koudelka from Edward and James. And it sets up her having to find her way through the monastery, learning some more story stuff, and getting back to them. Once you reunite the party, you can go back in and fight that gargoyle. But this dude is the hardest thing in the entire game. He is hands down the hardest boss. He's fast, he's strong, he's got tons of defense, and he can do things to you that the final boss can't even do. But if you can beat him, then you can cakewalk the last boss no problem. But the prep you need for him is ridiculous. And if you're going to attempt this, to anyone listening to this video, this man scales with you. So if you're thinking, I'm just gonna make myself so buff, it's not even fun. It doesn't matter. He will scale with you. He will make it. So there are strategies online you can follow to fight him. Usually it's within doing certain things in a certain amount of time so you can get to him with enough power, and you gotta hope you get certain drops from RNG, especially when it comes to like attack items. Attack items are your friend in that fight. But if you do end up beating him, you will get a special sword that also helps against the final boss. So personally, I didn't like the fight whatsoever, so I never went ahead and finished it. I just looked up everything. Man, screw that guy. Fuck that gargoyle. He sucks. Now, I've made it this far into the video, and some people who have played the game are like, dude, you're not talking about like one specific great thing that's in the game. And I'm here to tell you, no, I haven't, because I'm here to talk about the man, the myth, the legend that is Roger Bacon. Roger Bacon is like the best character in the whole game. His voice actor does hands down the best job with this character. There's nothing that this man doesn't say that doesn't instantly get stuck in your head. I wish they would have put him more throughout the game, and he only shows up like 4 or 5 times tops. But every time he shows up on screen, he chews up the scene. Not to mention, he's just like a goofy info dump who just knows everything. I'm not going to spoil everything about Roger, but he is the coolest old mummy man that I've ever seen in a video game, and we need more of this guy.
Repent now! Judgment Day is near. The cacophonous sound of 7 bugles will consume the heavens, and all sinners will burn in the fiery wrath of the Lord. But I will not die. Death knows no boundaries. It is an integral part of each and every life. Death is ultimately an act of grace and love from the Lord.
I mean, really, it's kind of hard to say whether this game is a straight bad or good, or even just a neutral. Like, there's so many times that it does something really well, but then right around the corner, something equally bad or annoying rears its ugly head. And I mean, the turn-based combat works, and it's pretty solid. Everything kind of runs together. And it shows that the staff that was there knows how to do turn-based. But whenever they tried to add some of the things that Kikuta wanted, they just didn't really do it in a way that made a lot of sense, like the breakable weapons, items not being able to be purchased, so like there's no economy, things like that. And I mean, I don't know, like the writing is good, and then sometimes it's fine to like hilarious, not in like a good way, but it's just like comedic. But overall, the writing for this game is solid, and it stays with its dark themes, and it makes the characters pretty believable. Like James basically being like a racist, and he looks down upon anyone that's not in the church, even so far as going to say that like the people who died in the monastery deserved it because they were trying to steal from it. But when you look outside of the story and the characters themselves, like exploration, it's there, but it's not very deep. And even though the pre-rendered stuff is very nice and it's fun to like find your way around the areas and find the items, it doesn't really offer you a whole lot more. Once again, the economy system being completely gone like ruins any ability to really focus down your weapons. And then on top of that, you can't adjust the weapons at any point. You can't add any attack. You can't put any type of effects on them. They just are the way they are. So even though you have all this freedom with your characters to build them however you want, whatever seed you're on is going to dictate how that game runs, because you're just not going to be able to get the things that you need. And it's just like, I don't know, like you're going to dump attack into Edward, you're going to dump magic into Koudelka, and then you're going to make James basically do all the buffing almost every single time. Trying to go away from that just makes the game a little bit harder, and it would end up being a detriment to your overall playthrough. I mean, everything involved, you know, characters, combat, exploration, music, all that. Really, this game would benefit from a remaster, in my opinion. And in that remaster, they just needed to tweak very few things. Like, if you don't want to add an economy, that's fine, but allow weapons to be changed out, or just get rid of durability, or give us like a durability meter, or something. Like, they just needed a few extra things in this game that I think if someone were to pick this up and try to like modernize it just a little bit, I think it would actually excel from having a remake. And really, I would be one of the first ones to line up and buy this. But really, what this ends up coming down to is that this game is a quirky, dark RPG in the PS1 library that offers you something that you're not going to get pretty much in any other RPG. Like, Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy, Breath of Fire is Breath of Fire, Koudelka is Koudelka. They don't. It doesn't really ape anything else. And the only thing that even comes close to it that could qualify as like a comparison is maybe Parasite Eve. But even then, like, there's so many different things in them, it's hard to compare them to each other. But if you were to ask me my super personal opinion, I'd say this is actually, in the end, kind of a fun RPG. You're gonna have to have a little bit of an old school sensibility about it. Like, you're gonna have to take your time. Don't expect it to be fast. And if you really just take your time, run through the game, and play it as it's supposed to be, I think you're gonna have a good time. Just make sure to temper your expectations. And that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed learning about this obscure, not well-known JRPG from the PS1 library. Once again, thank you for staying. Please like and subscribe. Also comment, did you play Koudelka when it first came out? Or has this video kind of inspired you to look at it? Or has my video like completely turned you off of this game and you're wondering why I'm even mentioning this or spending almost an hour talking about this stupid thing? So I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you later.